Have you ever been walking through a city when something tiny caught your eye? Nestled among the concrete squares of a sidewalk, you spot a small brass disc, polished by thousands of footsteps with numbers, letters, or strange markings engraved into its surface. Most people step over it without a second thought, assuming it's just another forgotten piece of hardware. But those little brass circles aren't random decorations, and they aren't leftovers from old construction projects either. They quietly serve a purpose that's surprisingly important, connecting today's cities with decisions made decades, or sometimes even centuries, ago. So why do sidewalks sometimes have tiny brass discs? Let's uncover the story behind these overlooked markers, right here, on History of Simple Things. Cities may seem permanent, but they're constantly changing. Roads are widened, buildings are demolished, sidewalks are replaced, and entire neighborhoods evolve over time. Despite all that change, governments, engineers, architects, and surveyors need a way to ensure that every new project begins from the exact same point of reference. If everyone measured land using slightly different starting points, property lines would shift, roads wouldn't align properly, and construction errors would become inevitable. Long before satellite navigation existed, surveyors developed systems of permanent reference points that could survive decades of urban growth. Some were carved into stone monuments, while others were embedded directly into sidewalks, curbs, bridges, or building foundations where they could remain accessible without interfering with everyday life. Surveying itself is one of humanity's oldest professions. Ancient Egyptians used it after the Nile flooded to restore property boundaries, while the Romans relied on surveyors to build roads, aqueducts, and military camps with remarkable precision. As cities expanded during the Industrial Revolution, surveying became even more critical because land values increased and infrastructure grew far more complex. By the 19th and 20th centuries, many countries established official geodetic surveys that created networks of fixed reference points across entire regions. These points allowed surveyors working miles apart to produce maps and measurements that matched perfectly. Every bridge, railway, pipeline, and public building depended on this invisible framework of carefully maintained reference locations. Even today, with highly accurate GPS receivers available, surveyors rarely rely on satellites alone. GPS signals can be weakened or reflected by tall buildings, dense trees, tunnels, or severe weather conditions. Small errors of just a few centimeters can become major problems when constructing bridges, tunnels, or high-rise buildings that must fit together precisely. That's why permanent physical markers remain valuable. They allow professionals to verify satellite measurements, recalibrate equipment, and confirm that every project aligns with the same established coordinate system. Having a durable object fixed permanently into the ground provides confidence that measurements remain consistent regardless of temporary technological limitations or changing environmental conditions. Those tiny brass discs are commonly known as survey markers, survey monuments, or geodetic control markers. They're usually made from brass, bronze, or other corrosion-resistant metals because these materials withstand decades of weather, foot traffic, and temperature changes without deteriorating quickly. Each marker is carefully installed at a precisely measured location, whose position and often elevation have been officially recorded. Many include identification numbers, agency names, or stamped dates that correspond to records maintained by government surveying organizations. Rather than marking buried utilities or hidden cables, these discs establish known reference points that surveyors can return to repeatedly, sometimes generations after they were first installed, knowing their positions remain officially documented. Not every brass disc serves exactly the same purpose. Some are horizontal control points, establishing an exact position on the Earth's surface. Others are vertical benchmarks, providing a precisely measured elevation above a reference level, traditionally tied to mean sea level or a modern vertical datum. Engineers use these benchmarks when designing drainage systems, roads, railways, flood defenses, and buildings to ensure everything slopes correctly. Even a slight elevation error can cause water to collect where it shouldn't or prevent infrastructure from connecting properly. Many utility companies, transportation departments, and local governments also install their own reference markers for specialized projects while still tying them into larger national surveying networks. Interestingly, many of these markers have become unexpected pieces of local history. Some remain in exactly the same location for over 100 years, surviving wars, earthquakes, road reconstructions, and complete neighborhood transformations. In countries such as the United States, thousands of historical survey markers were cataloged by agencies like the National Geodetic Survey, allowing professionals and even hobbyists to locate them using published records. Similar systems exist in many other nations, each maintaining permanent control points that support mapping, engineering, and scientific research. While pedestrians rarely notice them, these small brass discs quietly preserve a city's geographic memory, linking today's landscape with measurements established long before modern digital technology existed. The next time you notice a tiny brass disc embedded in a sidewalk, you'll know you're looking at far more than an odd piece of metal. It's a carefully positioned reference point that helps define where roads belong, where buildings stand, and how entire cities are measured with remarkable accuracy. Although satellites and digital mapping have transformed surveying, these humble brass discs continue to anchor the physical world to a reliable foundation that technology alone cannot always replace. Hidden beneath countless footsteps, they remind us that even the smallest details in our cities often carry an enormous responsibility, quietly keeping the modern world in its proper place. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.